The Green Suiters podcast is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to support our show, head on over to patreon.com/Green Suiters podcast. Before getting to this episode, we'd like to thank the following new patrons who just joined our Patreon community: Joe Jackson, Matthew Crocker, Jessica Yan, and Adam Peck. Thank you for your support. Now, on to the show.
Here we are again, gentlemen.
Woo! Episode 9.
Believe that?
I know.
I'm so excited that the numbers are going to raise even faster now that we are doing this every week, everyone. You're welcome.
Right.
You are welcome.
I sold one of my kids, so now I've got more time.
Yep. I refinanced my home to afford to pay my bills.
And Jason got a really good deal on it too. He got a 24% APR.
Yes, which I understand is very good on homes.
Mm-hmm. It's really good.
Yeah. God, so excited.
So what have you guys been up to this week?
You want me to go first, Mr. Sedgley?
Yes.
Yeah. So, actually not a lot. We decided to kind of rearrange our office. I don't know if you guys remember. I don't know if I posted too much on Instagram about it, and I didn't do a YouTube video, but I mean, you guys both saw the office. You guys come over here all the time. The big double desk built-in that I did.
Yep.
Well, yeah, we basically scrapped one of them. So it's one whole set is sitting in my shop now. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to move the bike from the living room into that room, kind of turn it more into a gym and a smaller scale office. So we did some rearranging, and I'm just going to repurpose some of this stuff. And I started that, but it was funny. I had to go up in my attic and get this big, I have like this big Husky roller tote that I actually moved all my clamps in when I moved from Georgia up here. And I went up to the attic to get it, pulled it down, went into the bedroom, getting ready to start pulling these things apart. And I just happened to open stories. Sometimes I'll just let stories on Instagram play in the background so I can like listen to what other people are doing and get caught up. And one of them was Jason Hibbs.
Oh yeah, I remember.
So yeah, he was asking.
Yeah.
He was asking. He's getting ready to build a miter saw station, or not a miter saw station. I'm sorry, an assembly table, and he needed one more pair. He had everything that he needed except one more pair of 21-inch full extension undermount drawer slides. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that I used 21-inch on this cabinet. And sure enough, I pulled one of the drawers out and did it, measured it, and it was 21 inches. And like 15 minutes before that, he posted that story. So I wrote him and I was like, hey, I've got a set that I can send to you. And then he was like, hey, do you have any more? Because it would actually be, I'll take as many as I can get at this point, because they're back ordered everywhere.
Oh, everything's back ordered.
Yeah, it's really hard to get Bloom stuff. Like I ordered a set for something I recently did. Anyways, it took forever for them to get there. And I was wondering, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Well, yeah, they're back ordered. And so I'm sending them 4 sets. I got to send those out on Sunday. But so crisis averted. But anyways, he like posted about it in his stories. And I'm pretty sure I gained like 450 followers on Instagram in 24 hours. It's not a joke.
Wow.
Like it took me back to the old days of Instagram. I mean, it was like instantaneous. I just like looked, I was like, holy crap. Like, who are all of these people? It's great.
Which is in contrast to the conversation we had a few weeks ago, where you know, in the past, you never really saw a bump in anything from collaborative, you know, anything cross posting or cross videos or shop tours or whatever. And so I think it just depends on the audience that they have, right?
That I think is one part of it, but I think I disagree. Like there's definitely results. However, the big results you get are from those accounts that are just massively huge. Because think about it, you know, with my following, I'm lucky to get 2,000 views on my stories.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his following is like 4 times the size of mine. So let's just, you know, quadruple that and say a small percentage of those people actually like are diehard fans or whatever, and they're like, oh, I want to go follow this guy. But what really blows my mind is that there's that many people out there that follow him for woodworking, and probably realistically a lot of people following him and don't even like woodworking. He's just so damn entertaining that, he could make any video entertaining. But I just thought that was interesting. It was just like, holy cow, like one little thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like us. When we talk about people on this show, what do you think is happening? People are listening to it, and as they're like, all right, who are the next people? There's probably some people out there listening to the podcast that are like, ooh, I love this segment. And as we say the name and spell it out, they're like typing it in and following, right? So I think it happens differently at different levels. But other than that, that's really all I've been doing this past week. Work. I'm at work a lot more now. I have less and less time out here. So hopefully here in the very near future, I'll be getting started on the next project. I did release the cabinet video, Ben, obviously while you were here, right before you left or right after you left, but video's doing great.
Oh
yeah. Video's doing great. Yes. Sedge.
Be prepared, Mr. Bent. I watched it.
Oh my gosh. Are you okay?
Uh-huh. And I'm going to tell you, it's a killer video.
Thank you. It means a lot coming from you.
I really enjoyed it.
It's okay.
Yeah, I basically just ripped off your video.
Hey guys, I got a quick question on Instagram and YouTube. Some guy reached out to me this week, and I don't know if he's got a big following. He's called The Beast. Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast. Yeah.
Should I do a collab with him?
You
Absolutely
should.
not.
You'd be a millionaire the next day.
Oh
No.
my God. I can't believe the size of some of these accounts.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It's cool.
Can happen to anybody.
It's really cool. Okay, I digress. Sorry.
So, but before I'll kick it over to Ben, I'll kick it over to you next. One of the most requested things I've been getting lately is, so first of all, the feedback from the cabinet video has been fantastic, which I knew it would be. And I'm not saying that to sound big-headed. It's just that I've done cabinet videos before and the feedback has always been really good. And I have an entire series of all kinds of different things that I want to do. And you better believe that I'm going to start leaning heavily into that for two reasons. One, it does well. And two, I really enjoy doing it. And there's so many different variations. Well, with that being said, one of the most common questions and requests, believe it or not, for a YouTube video is how I determine the drawer size and spacing.
Yes, absolutely.
And by the time this video comes out, or by the time this podcast comes out, the video will already be live. So I'm interested to see what the feedback is from that. So I had a perfect opportunity because I just ripped apart two, custom based cabinets. They're not standard, they're custom. So this really applies because I have to develop my own sizes and I have to develop my own spacing and all that stuff, right? Which I talk about in the video. So I actually used this. I took the drawer fronts off and I had a cabinet that already had spacing and I walked through like, here's how I did this. Here's the math that I used. This is why I did this. Here's how I go about doing it. And we'll see. I don't know if it's a super highly searched topic, but I think it's going to help the people that have been asking. So I'm excited about that. But that's what I've been doing. I just got to edit that in the next couple of days. And that's it. What about you, Ben?
Well, before I get to what I was doing, so what makes you choose to do a custom size versus just doing standard cabinet or, standard drawer sizes? Like, what was it that prompted you to do that?
But the gist of it is I think there's two categories that people fall into when it comes to determining drawer sizing and spacing. And the first is it's custom and there's no reference, right? I can reference any typical base cabinet for a kitchen island, a kitchen with a single drawer and a drawer front. Matter of fact, Sedge has great books. There's great books out there. You can literally open it up and get every measurement you need for every cabinet, regardless of style. So that's a standard. That's easy to reference. If you're building something for a customer, so for example, this was a very specific height based on the legs that I used. So it wasn't a standard box size. it was a specific width, which the width really doesn't matter in this. It's more of the, the overall height. That's what you need to know. And then I knew I wanted 3 drawers, and I wanted 3 drawers to be a specific size for a specific reason.
Mm.
So because of that, I have to create but the thing I'm trying to point out in the video is, how do you get to that point? How do you determine the drawer sizes that you want and figure out how much you have to play with? And then the other trap that people fall into is they think that they need to take up every single, millimeter in that box. Like, oh, I have another 1/4 inch. I need to make my drawer box 1/4 inch higher. And I better only have an 1/8 of an inch gap between drawers. Like, that's ridiculous, right? That causes more problems than anything. So anyways, I talk about that in the video, and I think it'll be good. I think it's going to help the right people. I don't think it'll be a zinger, but I think it'll help the right people.
Oh, I thought it was going to be based off of the size of the fleshlight that you have.
The Polar Vortex?
Yeah.
I swear, I listened to episode 8 today on the way home, on the way to work and on the way home. And when we got to the Everybody Hates Jason for the Get Bent.
Get Bent, yeah.
Oh my God. I was losing it in the car. Like, the person next to me was looking at me funny because I was at a stoplight when that part came on, and Sedge was talking about his name in college and all this stuff. And I lost it. I looked like an idiot, but it was hilarious.
Too cool. Ben, what have you been up to?
So got home from seeing you guys on the weekend on Sunday evening, and started to do a little bit of shop organization. I still have some stuff that's just kind of scattered everywhere. I need to get some plywood so I can start making some carcasses for all the cisterners that I got now. And I started experimenting with one of my older designs. Jason, remember the stools that I used to make? Yeah,
I've been watching your stories.
So this was probably my best seller right here. I was telling Jennifer about it last night. I didn't even have these on my Etsy shop for a year, and I had sold over 100 of them. So I've been checking Etsy for the last few weeks, and there's still nothing like this that's on there.
Wow.
And that's also why I got the Glowforge, so that I can grave it, because I think that's what led to a lot of the sales. So anyways,
I'm going to make them now.
Yeah. What's that angle right there?
Yeah.
It
talks about it in the stories. Go back and watch
38 and a half and
Okay.
52 and a half.
Okay.
Or 51 and a half, something like that, whatever it is. So anyways, so when I made these before, I used to do them on my table saw, and it was a really long process to make them. And so now that I don't have a table saw, I was like, man, I really want to figure out a way that I can make these really, or not really quickly, but quicker than it was before. And so when you do a complementary cut, you're doing one cut at 0 degrees, you're doing one cut at 90 degrees, and the bevel of the saw dictates the angle that your overall angles are going to be at. So I was like, okay, how can I use what I have to do this quicker? And so I ended up just using the edge of the MFT to hold everything together. So instead of a stool that took 8 passes over the table saw, it only takes 2 passes with the track saw. And it's really, really quick.
Nice.
So
I'll tell you, I've been watching your stories, and you've been saying some bold stuff about the track saw versus table saw. I cannot wait to.
I'm gonna prove everybody. Well, not prove everybody wrong, but I'm not trying to prove anybody anything. I am trying to prove the people that made that comments on that Facebook post that a track saw can't do certain things when it clearly can do all of those things.
I understand the way that you're making the comment.
Yeah.
Like, you can do, this goes with any tool. You can do, the dado is a perfect example. Well, you can't put a dado stack in a track saw. You're right. You can't. That doesn't mean you can't do a dado.
If I had an HK85, I could, because it has one.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's got a 50 millimeter Makata.
In Europe, they do.
Yeah. I think it's,
wow.
I'm trying to remember. Is it a 50 millimeter?
I think it's 55. That's the deepest that it'll.
Oh, that's the deepest, but there's a cutter, and maybe I'm thinking about the other cutter on the Ladja saw that's got the 16-inch blade.
Yeah, it's with
that.
the
No,
80.
that's got a 90 that's got a 90 millimeter and also a 50 millimeter. So I'm not sure what that HK85 has, but it does have a aluminum billet with carbide knives, and it's
Mhm.
pretty cool. I've
Yeah.
used it before. It works good.
But you know, I'm still trying to balance all this, like with going to school, and right now it's starting to get to the crunch time in school. I've got projects that are coming up now. I've gotten voluntold to be the leader of certain class project groups, and so YouTube just kind of on the back burner now. But that's all I've really been up to is just kind of going back, looking at my old designs, doing school stuff. I want to talk HVLPs real quick.
Let's do it.
So I think I'm going to pull the trigger on the Semi Pro 2 from
Fuji.
from Fuji. So what, apart from let me back up. What are the benefits that I would experience using a sprayer, like a good sprayer, you know, or a semi-professional sprayer, versus roll and tip and something? And I know that there are some benefits to it, but I know that some people listening to this may not exactly know. So what would be the benefits for me?
Two things: faster.
I mean, okay, faster
and faster application of finish.
what? Okay.
And you're going to get a better result, period. Some of them, I believe you could argue. I've gotten good results with certain finishes brushing on. Very good results. Like you wouldn't even know that it was brushed on. The larger the surface, from my experience, the more difficult it is to get it very even across the board. With a spray system, a decent spray system, I've had really good finishes with a home right sprayer on clear coats.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you kind of get the technique down and you really understand your gun, it's going to be a better experience. So now there are downsides too, but Sedge, to answer his question, what do you think?
Better lay down. It's so much quicker. People will complain about the cleanup of the gun versus your brush and your roller. That's a bunch of who.
Well, that's me.
Cleaning up.
To be fair,
cleaning up is so easy. It's ridiculous. I'll spray. I love to. Tipping and rolling, yeah, you got to work out some roping issues and stuff like that. And there's so much technique in the yacht business. There was a lady, I'm trying to remember her name. She could roll and tip, oh my God, next to any sprayer. She was good.
That's
Dottie,
years of experience.
I'm trying to remember. Oh my God, yes. And she was always busy because there's some places, in yards where you don't want to spray and stuff like that. But it's a better end product in my eye if you spray. And there is a lot of technique to it, but it's just simpler.
You have more control, in my opinion. You can control the amount of material that's coming out. Sometimes with the brush, maybe you've loaded it too heavily. You can get areas, and then everybody has a tendency to overbrush. Yeah. So they'll brush. I mean, I do too. You'll brush and you'll be like, oh, I need to get these marks out. If you're using a really good finish that self-levels, brushing is a great option. Where you're also going to capitalize on is, one, if you're batching things out, like let's just say those stools, sprayers are the way to go, regardless of how small it is.
Yep.
In the long run, I feel like you'd spend less money on consumables too.
So my concern going into it, I mean, I've used sprayers before, like just the cheap ones you get at a big box store, but I was spray painting latex, I think. But anyways, I guess not a concern I have, but I think about the time that I have. What is the average setup time that you would need for like an acrylic, and what's the cleanup time? Because for me, if I'm doing, obviously the actual application would be quicker with a sprayer. However, the setup time with a paintbrush and a paint can is non-existent. It's opening a can, stirring it real quick, and then applying.
Okay, the setup time for a paint spray system is non-existent as well, as long as you clean it afterwards. So the cleaning is the part that is going to save you time in the long run. And I'll give you a good example. I have my Fuji gun, which I use to spray the remainder of my finish on my assembly table, and it's been sitting over there in the gun for 2 weeks, and I'm dreading cleaning it. But that's my own fault, right? And I have a bad habit of doing that. Now I'll be able to clean it and it'll be no problem. But the setup time is irrelevant, right? You're going to take your sprayer, you're going to move it to where you want to spray, and you're going to hook your gun up to your hose. You're going to turn it on, or you're going to pour your finish in, because you don't have to thin anything. It's a clear coat, especially with that system. Yeah, you strain it, pour it in.
You strain it,
and
it's easy.
Yeah, you're going to turn the system on and you're going to spray.
I'll say it like this. Let's get a time value. You do it right. 3 minutes to set up. Okay. And 5 minutes to clean up.
Well, that's excluding, I mean, because you have to worry about overspray, right? Like I'm in my.
Not really.
No?
You get your stuff dialed in. The extent of me and my prep work in my shop when I spray things, I sprayed the entire walnut dining room table. I took a 35-cent plastic sheet, 0.3 mil plastic sheet, draped it over my my joiner planer combo, did another one, draped it over the miter saw station, and I sprayed. Because the reality of it is spray systems are going to atomize that much quicker, right? If it's set up properly. And those little particles that go up into the air, they're not little particles that are going to end up falling on a surface and, causing any sort of issues. That's been my experience. You know what it creates? A little bit of dust.
Yeah.
A little bit of finished dust.
With HVLP, though, you have less bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the name of the game. That's where when you hear overspray, Ben, that's when a guy is using a compressed air system.
Okay.
And man, people have a really tough time controlling that, because they are dialing in pressure way too improperly.
Well, Sedge, correct me if I'm wrong.
And I've seen shops walking in without spray booths, and it's covered up because there's so much fog. It's like a fog walking in because they're idiots.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sedge, but the whole purpose of the HVLP. So my system has an adjustable setting. Like I can adjust the amount of pressure. I don't know if the Power 2 does, or the Mini might too. I'd have to look. Any of them that are adjustable, the whole purpose is to be able to dial down the amount of pressure that's coming out of the gun, but still atomize the finish properly. And when you do that, you don't have, that's the benefit to an HVLP versus the compressor. The compressor is going to be full air unless you have a regulator on it. And so it's pushing the finish out in enough to where it's basically like coming out and falling on it, but it's not flying off. It's not hitting it and flying it all over the shop.
Yeah.
So the stuff that does go in the air in my shop, it's basically finish dust at that point. It would never fall on anything and like coat it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really not a concern.
You also got to be aware that turbine is going to create heat.
Yeah.
So it comes out, it's going to heat it up. So you got to be careful. There's certain things you got to be aware of as you're spraying. Like, why is it setting up a little bit quicker? Because it's warmer, right? So,
and it will warm up your shop in the wintertime, clearly.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic. No, I have a lot to learn. Like Sedge has so much more experience when it comes to spraying than I do, but every time I do it, I learn a little bit more. And talking with Jeff, who's the owner of Target Coatings, that dude is like a genius when it comes to finishes. And him and he's actually been nice enough to like hop on the phone with me a couple of times. And we have one that we really want to like dive deep and like set up. He uses Fuji spray systems solely, not the Apollo, but I have the Apollo system, but the Fuji gun for clear coats.
Yeah.
But he really helped me out a lot. I was like, hey, I just want to make sure I have my settings right. And it was funny because after testing everything out on my current spray system, I had everything set up, and I think we hopped on the phone, or we were talking via Instagram, and he was like, well, I can't speak for the Apollo, but I usually have mine on about 3/4 power on the Fuji. He has like the Q5 Platinum or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I looked down at my machine, and when I thought I had it dialed in, it was the same thing. It was on 3/4. And in reality, Apollo's system is probably they're both very good quality spray systems. I'm sure it's very similar to the Fuji, but it was just nice. So he's been a huge help. And I I have a ton to learn, but I don't like the prep work sometimes that I feel like I have to go to.
Like what?
But like if I had a finishing room, let's just put it this way. If I had a finishing room, no doubt. I hate applying. If I can spray, I'm going to spray. Unless it's like one tiny little piece, and then I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, my only concern is that directly above me is my kids' room. And so worrying about fumes and VOCs and stuff like that. Obviously I wouldn't spray necessarily if they were home, but it is something I have to consider.
I wouldn't worry about that so much. And if you're really worried about it, get an air filtration fan for your shop.
Okay.
I wouldn't worry about it. I spray in the garage, and you can't smell anything in the house, nothing at all. So and I wouldn't worry about it too much.
We're diving deep, but the only other thing I'm going to tell you, well, a couple things, is I always have a gun for paint and a separate gun for clear.
100%.
And also, what was the other thing I was going to mention? Snap. There goes my memory.
Ben's woodworking is amazing. I did it for you. You're welcome.
Yeah, that's what it was, Jason.
Thank you.
So I know that Jason, that you recommended the Fuji Semi Pro 2, but I mean, you would still recommend the Apollo, because right now the Apollo is there is an Apollo available. It's about an hour away from me.
Oh, used?
No, new. I can go to Woodcraft and pick one up.
Do you know what system it is?
I'd have to double check. I mean, we can run it by after the episode, but
okay.
There's a used Fuji Semi Pro 2, but it's 3 hours away for $400, and they're $500 brand new.
And so I buy brand new.
No. And I don't
How
know
much is the Apollo?
6 something.
I'd
have to go look at it again.
Buy the Fuji.
Yeah.
Hey Ben, I just remembered what I was going to say, if you guys don't mind. And also the other thing is, make sure you select what medium you're going to shoot, whether it is solvent based or water, and stick with that. Follow me?
Like anything that I put into that same system?
I would stay with water based. I would stay with water based the entire time. And then
it's way easier to clean too.
It's but no. I think lacquer's easier, or solvent based is easier to clean. For me, it is. But I shoot solvent based lacquer. So, but I would not. I don't shoot water based lacquer.
Why is that?
Lacquer. It's just I don't want to mess up my gun. I shoot solvent based. I stay solvent based.
So you could say, Sedge, that you're afraid of change.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't change. No, I have that gun for lacquer. I mean, solvent based. I'd go buy a water based gun.
It's funny. I've actually had I've shot shellac. Right.
Yep.
And I've had shellac. There's been times where I've had shellac in my gun without using it for like 6 months. And then I fire it up and I pull the trigger, and it burns right through it and sprays just like it did the first day I used it. It's pretty cool. Water-based, not so much.
Okay. So
shellac's awesome.
My next
question.
Hold
on. To go back, you said why the Fuji versus the Apollo. To be clear, I have nothing against Apollo. I have nothing against Fuji. I don't have brand loyalty to either one. I use both of their products. But in my opinion, based on Apollo, you don't see all that much, right? Mm-hmm. But if the Fuji, which I know plenty of people have Fuji spray systems and have the 2-stage unit that I told you about, it's very reasonably priced, and they have a very good track record and very good customer service. That's not to say Apollo doesn't, because I have had very good experiences with Apollo.
You just don't know. You've heard more about Fuji than you have Apollo.
I know about one Apollo system, and that is the Power 5. But I know plenty of people who have the 2-stage, a 3-stage, a 4-stage, a 5-stage, Fuji, all this stuff, because it's all over social media, which is, again, the power of social media marketing and why it's more sought after. For what you want to do, shooting clear coats and nothing else, that system would be everything you need, because unless you're planning on shooting a bunch of paint, then I would tell you to look at a 5-stage unit.
Correct.
Because it's more powerful. You don't. I have a 5-stage unit.
it.
I've never thinned down the paint even because the 5-stage unit can handle it. Should I probably? Yeah, but I don't need to, right? But you can't do that on a 2-stage. You better thin your paint and all that stuff. But you're just shooting clear coat. Don't go out and buy a 5-stage unit. Buy the 2-stage.
Unless,
and Fuji has a really good track record.
See, and this is always the dilemma, right? Because you at some point we exceed the capabilities of the equipment that we use if we go for not the low hanging fruit, but if we go for that mid range or mid to low range. Because like hearing you say that, like as long as you don't ever plan on spraying paint with it, which I know that you can if you thin it. But now I'm thinking, well, why don't I just get a 5-stage? That way, if I ever, because I know for absolute certainty at some point I will be spraying paint.
And if that's the case, then I would tell you, yes, you can thin it, but I can already tell you don't want to do that. So if you want to go big and have it, not need it, and then when you do need it, it's there. Then I mean, I'd have good things to say. I can't say any good things about the Fuji. I think it's like the 5 Platinum or Platinum 5 or something like that. If you do order a Fuji though, let me know and I'll get you in contact with Jeff over at Target Coatings because he is a vendor for Fuji.
Okay. Well,
matter of fact, I might put you in contact with him so you can talk to him about it because he will be able to answer every freaking question that you have about Fuji spray systems.
And from what I understand too, is that the stage 5s are, they're much quieter than the stage 2s and 3s. So.
Yes. I'd agree with that.
Probably, but don't think that it's going to be quiet. You can like spray and no one's ever going to hear it. Because like my Power 5 is still loud, but I also have never shot a 2-stage. So like I would hate to hear what a 2-stage unit sounds like. See that? He has to keep going and messing with his cat. This is so weird.
I swear, stupid cat.
Don't say stupid cat. It's a wonderful cat.
You never even met Gumbo, Jason, okay?
I don't care. I can see it and I love it. Drink your White Claw and shut your mouth. But Sedge, let's move on to Sedge because Sedge has not talked about what he's done. And we're 30 minutes into it and we have a really good topic to discuss.
All right, Sedge, 2 minutes, go.
Okay, I'll be quick. After hosting the drunken hand tool clinic this weekend.
You should have seen our drunken.
My God.
You should have seen our drunken photo shoot in my shop.
Oh my God. So I installed Sunday those, and I sent you guys a couple pictures of the Bora rack I installed over my double door lumber rack, and it went up really well. But once again, I'm organizing the shop again, and that's what I've been up to and getting ready. By the time this podcast appears, I will have come back to Indiana because I'm heading out to Los Angeles tomorrow for a big family wedding, and I'm really stoked. So that's what I've been up to. That's what I've been up to.
What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do this weekend? You're leaving me here to deal with Patrick from Leather by Dragonfly all by myself.
You guys are going to have a wonderful time. They're such a cool couple.
I know. Michelle is coming, so I'm going to have a great time.
Good. Good.
I'm just kidding. Patrick is okay for being a Marine.
Cool. You're going to have some crayons set out for him?
I am. So that's the good thing. That's one of the benefits to him coming is that like he's really familiar with crayons. So him and Leo get along really well.
What's his favorite color to eat?
Pink, which I'm not surprised because
that's what I thought.
Marine Corps is basically the Navy.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh my God.
Alrighty.
Hold on. Hold on. So before we get into the topic, I'll make this brief. My Sergeant Major listens to our podcast. He's listened to every episode now.
Cool.
And hey, that happened
Major,
in like
Jason talks shit about you all the time, Sergeant Major. So
yeah. So for those of you listening, this is not my my official recommendation this week, but my Sergeant Major here at Camp Atterbury, Team Tomlin carpentry. He just started Instagram. He's really excited about it. Is getting into trim carpentry. But I told him, he told me the other day, I never in a million years thought that he would end up listening to this podcast, right? So we're at work the other day and he told me, he's like, oh, I started listening to your podcast. And he started on episode 7 and worked his way back. And he's like, I think he's already done. And it was just funny because the night before we filmed or we recorded episode 8, and I told him, I was like, all right, Sergeant Major, I got to tell you something. We talked about you on my podcast on episode 8, which will be coming out next weekend. And he said, oh, really? What were you guys talking about? I was like, I got to be honest with you. I called you a Milwaukee weenie.
That's right.
He just kind of laughed about it, but
cool.
Yeah, it's good. I told him I've been trying to convert him over to Festool instead of the Milwaukee stuff and all of his pack out. Anyways, I thought that was funny because today, as I was listening to episode 8 prior to it going live, I was listening to that part, and that was another part where I just started dying laughing in the vehicle on my way home. Anyways, Ben, go ahead. What's tonight's topic?
That's a really weird way to try to get a good NCOER bullet, Jason.
He doesn't write my NCOER.
Well, I'm just saying it goes through him.
Not to mention, I don't care if I get a really good NCOER now because I'm about to retire.
All right, so this episode is brought to everyone by one of our patrons, Eric Barber. Eric Barber is one of our top tier patrons on the show, and one of the greatest benefits that you get for being a top tier patron is you get to pick one of the topics for an entire episode, and so that's what we're going to do in episode 9. So this episode, it's all about materials. We've talked about tools before. We've talked about shop organization, shop layout, and now we're gonna start boiling it down to our favorite materials to use. So we'll start it off with Sedge. When looking at cabinets and carcasses, drawers, stuff like that, what is your go-to material to construct those?
Okay. My go-to material for carcasses is the majority of the time is pre-finished maple plywood. I usually get Columbia brand. I love it. If you look at the Sys wall I've done at Festool, I just recently did it with all the Sys AZ drawers in the new Gen 3.
Sedge, where do you like to get the plywood from? Since you said it's Columbia Forest Products.
Yeah, I get it from Frank Miller Lumber.
Okay.
And I get from Edgeco. That's where I get most of my banding. I get pre-finished maple banding, and the Contoro edge bander puts it on so nice, and it works great. So that is if it is like not a shop cabinet, but I did a lot of I like to save the finishing of my cabinets as much as I can. So I used back at Fort Lauderdale, my shop, I use a lot of pre-finished plywood for my carcasses. And then you would get somebody saying, well, I want my carcasses this and this, and then I'd have to spray them, and I'd always get I'd get from Whittlesey Wood Products. I'd get custom layups sometimes on different species if it was stain grade. Now, if it was paint grade, okay. And by the way, I hate melamine. I've been cut up by it. Oh my God, I just hate it. So
the most dangerous wood out there.
I would always select a decent cabinet grade plywood, and for me, I would either be birch or maple. And it's because you always prime and sand between that prime coat before for me to put your first coat on. So the prime seals it too. I would always shop majority of the time B2 plywood. I would stay away from shop. Yeah, B2. Yeah, B2 is it's always classified wherever I've purchased as a paint grade plywood where A doesn't have any imperfections and stuff like that. And a lot of people say, well, I use A because there's less imperfections. Well, for me, B2 was, if I was painting, was fine.
Right.
And there's all kinds of different ratings. I think it's A through C. I can't do it any justice, but Jason, what's that podcast you turned me on to? Shannon.
Shannon
Shannon's-
Rogers, the lumber industry update. He has a whole series on plywood. It's very, very good.
Oh my God. As soon as you mentioned that, I listened to it, and I've listened to about, I think, 10 episodes, and it just refreshed my memory, but it was really great to hear a professional such as he is, explaining it in really clear, a really clear way. It was really good. And very understandable.
Everything you ever need to know about plywood is in those couple episodes.
Yep. So I can't say that enough. Now, if I was selecting a hardwood, okay, and it was paint grade, all right, I'll tell you what, I'll select maple every single time because of its porosity, whatever you want to say it. In other words, when you prime if it's paint grade, if you prime that maple, you're not going to have any imperfections. I never did with a maple. And then you're 2 or 3 shots on top of that of whatever you're shooting for paint. It just, in other words, think about this. Think of the porosity of oak, and you were going to paint oak. Okay, you have to seal it really well first, because because of your cathedrals and your pores, right?
Yeah.
You don't do that.
Right
Walnut, it'll bleed right through walnut, all of it. So
yeah, it just
I think sometimes a lot of people forget the prime, and that is, if I could have one gem to hand out there, and I shoot or I have shot, I've tipped, or I've rolled. I used what was that? All-purpose prime when I was shoot from Sherwin-Williams. It was really good, and that worked out well. But
and why is it important to prime, Sedge? Like what's critical about?
It gives it a semi. For me, it gave it a semi seal. But think of prime as the glue for paint to stick to.
Yeah, it's a bonding agent.
It's a bonding agent.
That's not true. The paint I use says it's a paint and primer already, so I don't have to use primer.
Oh no.
I'll tell you what, my experience has been that is total BS. Always prime. Period.
Always. You prime when you guys paint a wall in your house. Do you prime it first?
I have and I haven't. And let me tell you, the ones that I have were much better results than the ones that I have not.
Depends on what I'm painting over, if I know what kind of paint it is. Good
point. No, that's a really good point, because if it's bare drywall, I don't care what the paint says it is. I need to prime it.
Always.
If it's painting over other paint, I've had really good results not priming it.
Yeah.
But it would be better if I primed it. But then you're just adding more coats of paint. But yeah, over bare drywall, which I know that we're not talking about drywall, but yeah, it, like Sedge said, primer is utterly important. And I have come to realize that it's another step, but holy cow, do you get a better result?
Sedge, have you ever used MDF as your carcass?
Carcass, no.
Wow.
No.
How come?
I hate it.
I really would have thought you would have said yes. Being in a
I've used plywood. I've used I call it plywood, but I've used MDF core ply with veneered. I had custom veneered cherry from Whittlesey Wood Products because I wanted a certain curly cherry on there.
But you didn't paint
and the
over
countertop. The countertop was a desk. It was a desktop. No, I didn't use. I didn't. I hated it. I don't like MDF. I mean, when I came to work at Festool, we would buy MDF and do something for. We wouldn't build carcasses, but we would do certain routing things with the MFS, and we would use MDF. I hated using it because of the dust, and That
the
is
weight.
and that is a material that sucks up paint. You have to prime that.
Mhm.
And I stopped using MDF in classes, router classes, um, probably about 8 years ago. But right before I stopped using it, I found LDF, light MDF,
Mhm.
and that is all right in my book because of the weight issue.
Yeah, that's what
Mhm.
sucks the most about MDF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like MDF because it's dead flat. So that's why I
Yeah.
chose it for desktops, and I'd have custom layups for it. But once
And
again,
then
I'd do a drop edge on there. You know, like I'll do, if I have that cherry top, I do a drop edge.
to protect
And
it.
yeah, but I always like to build them up. Usually about 50 out and drop them down about
Metric.
7. So it gives a really nice look.
Mhm.
I did that to a huge maple dining room table once. They dug that. That was an unbelievable drop edge. I think I have pictures of that somewhere. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I probably do.
I think it's on your
God.
Tinder profile, isn't it?
I got a good story about that, but I ain't gonna share that one.
Ooh, yeah.
I did a
All kinds of
presentation
pictures of your wood.
No, I did a presentation once for a bunch of people about social media at work, and I put all these logos up, and I was splashing them, and I was splashing like 4 or 5 that are really big over in Asia. And everybody's going, "Oh, what's that one? What's that one?" And then I threw the Tinder logo up, and as I skipped over, right, all of a sudden someone said, "Hey, what's that last logo?" I go, "Oh, you noticed that?" Yeah, you try to keep and you're in a meeting, you try to keep people's attention somehow. Yeah.
No, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So your plywood supplier, is that a local supplier that you get it from?
It's about 2 hours away, but they deliver all over, and they're unbelievable.
awesome.
They're known for their quarter sawn white oak. They're, for me, it's not always about price. I really dig good customer service.
Mm.
And if I've had problems before, they go, yep, we'll be there tomorrow. And I think they're 2 hours away, 3 hours away from me.
They're delivering the Indy area like every day.
All the time. And you order enough, they don't charge you. They're just such nice people
And
to deal with.
are they regional or national?
Regional, but I think, yeah, regional. Yeah. But boy, I know a lot of people all over the country that buy their quarter sawn white oak. They're unreal.
So
can I
so
say one more thing about hardwood? I'm
Yeah.
not grades. Guys, this is a whole nother podcast when we start talking hardwoods and selecting the right wood and what's your favorite wood. But
God, you keep saying wood. It's really getting me excited.
Well, Eric does want to know about hardwoods, but we can talk about dimensional lumber for right now. Or
okay, so
dimensional goods.
This is what I have learned over the years when you're ordering hardwood. Ask your supplier about if they have milling processes in their lumberyard. In other words, think about if you get rough sawn cherry, rough sawn walnut, rough sawn board, right? How much work goes into it to take it down? Say you order 4/4, right, which is an inch, and you need 3/4 out of that. You are running multiple passes through that planer, let alone straight line ripping it. Somehow, I use the Festool track saw system. There is so much labor involved. Okay, so I'll go back to who I purchased from, and they at one time I was ordering from Lori, and she said, or I mentioned about, I said something, do you guys have a planing? And she goes, "Oh no, we can mail for you." And I went, and I was blown away by this. She said, I go, okay, so say I buy 4/4 and I want you to take it down to just above 3/4. So I only have to throw a few passes through, right? And she goes, yeah. She goes, I go, how much is that to bring it down 4/4 to 3/4? Because that's what you order, right?
Yeah.
And she said 10 cents
Oh
a
my
foot.
God.
No, listen to this one. I said linear. She goes, no, board foot. I was blown away, and I go, hey, do you have a straight line ripper? She goes, yeah. I go, how much is that? She goes, 10 cents a board foot. You know how much labor that saves you?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And the other thing too is have a good bandsaw, because sometimes you'll have a board where you can have, maybe it's 5/4 and you want to take a 3/4 out of it. Bandsaw the majority of it out of there before you throw it through your planer. Okay.
Yeah.
And guess what? You'll find and that's not waste either, because you're left with that board that you could take down to 1/4 inch and use that for a veneer.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot of process. People really over. I'm going to tell you, if you can find a lumberyard with a mill to help you out, that's awesome. And Frank Miller is the sawyer. They're the mill. They're the kiln. They do everything, and they got the process down. It's in Union City, either Indiana or Ohio, because it's right on the line of Ohio and Indiana. So and that's who I use, and I have for about. I've been here 14 years in Indiana, a little over 14 years. It took me about a year to find him. But I met him at a woodworking show.
No, that's a really good idea. I definitely appreciate you saying that, because that's something that I'm gonna, because there's mills all around me, and I never even considered thinking about whether they could dimension it for me or not.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize in Indiana how many killer lumberyards we have, and Ohio. Oh my God, and the walnut, and I mean, we're just a skip away from Pennsylvania, and they get killer Pennsylvania cherry. It's unreal. I would
one of
say
the biggest walnut suppliers for the United States and internationally is actually in Ohio.
Yeah, that's Hartselle, right?
Yeah. Can I go? Because I want to play devil's advocate to that before I answer the cabinet question.
No, absolutely.
So I really like what Sedge said about the using a bandsaw first to take the majority of it off, because then you could use that thin piece as stock for a veneer, as opposed to just planing it off and turning it into chips. 100%. Yes. Like that is solid, right? Like you're not wasting the wood. You're using it for something else. Where I want to play devil's advocate though is, some people really enjoy the milling process. I'm not really one of those people, if I have to do a lot of it, but some people do. The other thing that I want to bring up, what's up?
It's just a means to an end for you.
Right. Well, the other thing that I want to bring up though is, to be fair, you are paying a premium for the stuff that is surfaced versus unsurfaced. If it's a small amount, those prices that Sedge talked about are really, really, really good. If you're just buying like 3-4 boards and you're like, hey, can you surface these for me? And you're paying, 10 cents per board foot, that's a really, really good deal. If you're buying a ton of lumber and you're not planning on using it right away, I don't know necessarily if, how much it would really save you in the end. I think that's kind of a, hold on one sec. That's kind of a, so the lumber yards that I got my lumber at in Georgia, you could buy rough sawn lumber and it was much less expensive, like much less expensive. But the majority of the stuff they had on the display floor for everybody to buy was already surfaced. Well, guess what? It was a lot more expensive.
Oh yeah.
So I just want people to understand that in most places that you're going to go to, they're going to have they might have rough sawn lumber out and they might have already pre-dimensioned. And the reason why the prices are so high is because they're charging you for their labor. The funny thing is though, is that they have gigantic machines. Matter of fact, Hardwoods, which is what I was just joking about. They primarily have sold rough sawn lumber, primarily walnut and white oak. They just got this massive machine that surfaces all their lumber, and that's going to increase quality, and it's going to do all these great things, right? But could there be a spike in price a little bit? Yeah, maybe, right? But they also don't sell directly to the public like Frank Miller does. So I know both of you raised your hand. Ben, you go first because you raised it first, and then Sedge.
I think that what you said was a really good caveat, because about depending on the quantity that you're getting, because what if you get that lumber dimensioned? And granted, most good lumber mills are going to kiln their lumber, so it shouldn't move. But if you bring it in and it's already been dimensioned, and just like you're saying, Jason, you're going to store some of it for a while, that lumber is still going to move a little bit based upon the humidity conditions and the season that you buy it in. If you bought it in the summer and you ended up trying to use it, in the winter, there's going to be a little bit of movement to that.
There is, but more importantly, though, and I was going to say this, but Sedge brought up the thing like, hey, don't take it all the way down to 3/4 so I can make a couple of passes myself. But
that's not S4S that I'm getting. It's not S4S.
It's not S4S. But here's the deal, though. I don't care how flat you get it. When you go to cut it and it releases tension, which is very common, makes no difference, right? You're going to have to now for the faces, depending on the way you mill, let's say you plane one side. I know we're getting way off into the weeds, but this is good information. If you joint one side, you make 2 passes, it's flat. Then you make the mistake of running it through your planer 13 passes and take off a 1/4 inch on one side and a 1/16 of an inch on the other. You better believe that is going to have an effect 9 times out of 10.
Yeah,
right?
Because you're releasing some of that tension.
And you're taking uneven amounts off both sides. Mm-hmm. So if you can try to, once you run it through the planer and it gives that first, everything's nice and flat, flip it over, alternate, flip it, right? But Sedge brought up a really good point because he said like, hey, I want you to take this down, not quite to 3/4 of an inch because I might need to make a few passes. So just understand that if you go to a lumber yard and it's already pre-surfaced, let's say it's just surfaced on 3 sides or 2 sides even. Let's just say it's surfaced on 2 sides and you're buying 4/4, it's probably closer to 3/4, if not 3/4. So now if you have to mill that, what do you think is going to happen? It's not going to be 3/4 anymore. So by being able to find a lumber yard that gives those options, I think is really good. And Sedge brought up a really good point. Like, I don't want to take it all the way down because I'm going to have to do it. But as soon as you go and cut that, and if it releases any tension, you're going to have to redo it again anyway. But Sedge, you were raising your hand. So what were you saying?
Okay. So I'm going to clarify myself. I buy rough lumber and I have them take it down to not right. I still got a lot of planing and I only straight line rip. This is not S4S. So I'm still getting the rough lumber price. Okay. But think about this, everybody. Okay. What's your time worth? Okay. Think about this. 300 board foot is not a small amount. Would you agree?
Yep.
Okay.
No,
that's
a lot.
That's $30 for them to take a lot of labor off.
Yeah, but I think that situation is probably pretty uncommon. And what I mean by that situation, no, you're right. Like I said, I totally agree with you. Like
10 cents a board.
That's a really good situation to be in.
And I've never, I don't buy S4S because it's ridiculously priced everywhere. And
it's crazy.
Well, the thing is people don't understand there's a ton of labor in that to get it right. Mm-hmm. And then when you get this S4S stuff, is it really straight line ripped? No, you get some crooking and some whooping you got to cut out. So I stay away from that.
Cool.
Well, let me quickly give my talk because you said about cabinets. So for me, if the interior of the cabinet is going to be visible and it's not going to be painted, I'm like Sedge. I like pre-finished ply, whether it's single-sided or double-sided, whatever's available. To me, double-sided, both sides typically, look about the same, but if you get a good grade, but B2 and A2 or A1 and all this other stuff, like one side could be not as good as the other, but I want the interior to be pre-finished because I don't want to deal with it. And then if I'm making frameless cabinets, I don't have to worry about anything other than the edge banding. If I'm painting it, I'm a little conflicted on this because I use a lot of birch ply and I've had really good results. I've used maple ply. I've used poplar ply. But when it comes to plywood, I think the most important thing is actually the quality of the veneer more so than the material it's made out of. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean that I would go out and buy, what is it? The pine, radiata pine to build cabinets and paint them because that's stupid, right?
You're talking about the construction grade stuff.
Yeah. But birch ply, I've painted birch ply, primed it and painted it, and it turned out fantastic. I've painted poplar, it turned out fantastic. I've painted maple ply, turned out fantastic. But if you have a really crappy quality veneer that's super thin and is cracked and stuff like that, well, guess what? That's going to bleed into the paint. And when I say bleed into the paint, I mean it's going to crack and you're going to see that in the paint. So a good quality plywood is really important, not just the material it's made out of, right? Yeah. You could get a really crappy poplar plywood and you're like, oh, poplar is really good for painting. So be aware of that. That would be my answer. In terms of hardwood, for me, when it comes to cabinets, it's all about whatever the finish is going to be dictates what I use. If I'm building, if I want natural white oak doors, then I'm going to use white oak edge banding, but I still might use a pre-finished, maple or a pre-finished whatever on the interior because it's going to be behind the door. When you open it up, you just want a nice finish and you don't want to have to worry about finishing it yourself. I think that kind of covered that specific portion of it, Ben, in terms of cabinetry, but it really just depends on the finish. If I'm painting it, then yes, I'm going to use poplar or maple, and that includes both hardwoods and the plywood. But I would go for birch if it's a good quality birch in some cases, if it's getting painted, for the cabinet carcass, but for the door, yes, I'm still going to go back and use maple or poplar. I'm like Sedge. Maple is my top choice, not hard maple, soft maple for me personally. Hard maple is just because hard maple is prone to have a ton of stress in it. And the minute you cut it, it just twists in all different directions. I have not had that experience with soft maple, and soft maple is less expensive, and soft maple is harder than poplar. Not by much, but I've also had really good experiences with poplar. So that would be my answer.
And, and one thing that is so important to understand is that, Jason's talking about, the hard maple and soft maple and poplar. And, a lot of the prices of these materials are regional specific. Like I know that Sedge favors maple over poplar, right, Sedge?
Oh yeah. I've had some issues with poplar about fuzzing up. I call it hairy poplar.
And see, and
hold on, Ben. Sedge, just to clarify, because we both talked about maple, do you prefer hard or soft?
Depends on what I'm building. Are you saying like a face frame, which I very rarely did? If I'm doing a tabletop, it's had maybe styles and rails. Yeah, it don't matter. But I like had maple for tabletop.
So you like it hard
and drop edges.
Yeah.
You behave, Ben Marshall.
He likes it hard. Okay, Ben, I'm sorry. I just want, because we both talked about it, I figured it'd be a good thing to highlight.
And Sedge had mentioned it earlier about quality over price, and while that is very true, sometimes that's not the circumstance we're all in. I know that for me, like when I built Genzor, I went and looked at, I think all they had available was hard maple. They didn't have any soft maple. Or maybe they did have soft maple, it just wasn't figured the best. But poplar was half the cost that maple was. And the point that I was just trying to hit earlier is that it's this is all incredibly regional specific. West Coast, you may have different prices, you may have different quality in woods. Here on the East Coast in Virginia, walnut is as common as grass. It's everywhere here. So, if I wanted to get something in walnut, it is so incredibly cheaper than different species of trees that's just not natural to this area. Almost every mill here does walnut. So, whatever the material is that you're trying to get, it's going to be beneficial for you to contact cabinet shops in your area, contact lumber mills in your area, and just ask them what are their prices. For cabinet shops, we were talking about dimensional lumber. Ask them who they get their lumber through, and not just like distributors of plywood, but just like actual contracting cabinet shops. Like, hey, who do you guys order your plywood through? Because that's a really good indication of at least a regional company that you can get really good dimension lumber through. I know that for me, when we're talking about cabinets, I prefer birch, Baltic birch. And I don't know what happened in the last few years. It used to be really easy to get really nice 11 ply Baltic birch. And I mean, like, when you looked at the side of it, it's just a straight continuous line all the way through, like really high grade, high quality Baltic birch. But now, like, that distributor just disappeared. Like all the suppliers in my area, at least, because I've contacted them, I'm like, hey, I'm looking for a really nice straight grain Baltic birch. And they're like, well, we don't know what happened to the distributor. They just disappeared. And so now I just kind of have to resort to really what the big box stores are carrying, because that's all that's available in my area.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because my said, Northwest Lumber.
Yes, sir.
That's where I get all my plywood, and they've been out of stock on Baltic birch until like 2022. And the last time I was there was like 4 months ago, and that's what it said then. I wonder if it's probably the same now. They're totally sold out of all of it.
Want to hear a quick story? I moved to Indianapolis. They were my lumber supplier. I walked in and I go, "You guys got plywood?" They go, "Yeah." I go, you get okay. So what do you get for a sheet of pre-finished maple plywood? They go, "Pre-finished?" They didn't have any. They didn't know what pre-finished plywood was. Isn't that cool? And now they carry it.
I was going to say, how many years ago was that? Because that's where I buy all my pre-finished plywood
14. From. I know, 14 and a half years ago.
Oh,
I thought he was going to say 14.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. But the thing is,
1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
Stop it. Here we go. But what was cool about it is I asked a couple other people that I knew, and I go, "Have you ever heard of pre-finished maple plywood?" I thought I was on a different planet at that point. I just thought it was funny as heck. And I like I said, I had to find my sources here, and that's the one thing I worked really hard at, and I got the best sources there are in Indy. I turned you on to a couple. Cortico, which I always will call them Cortico, but they're the Richelieu dealer in town, and that's where I get all my hardware too. They're just wonderful people to work with and deal with, and you just got to find the right sources. I'll recommend to anybody, find a good cabinet supply house, and then you can work with them. They'll sell you board, they'll sell you finish, they'll
Grain Sedge.
Yeah,
I know you know him. I was always wondering, like, what the heck is this place? And then I looked it up and found out that there was one here. And I remember talking to you about it, but they've been great. I mean, that's where I get all of my hardware from. And I talked about this in one of my videos. It's incredible, especially if you have like an actual business, like the cost difference. I mean, it's just retarded. I pay half of the price if I went to Rockler and bought them. Half.
But the thing is it's all about being educated. And I think this podcast is great because we're all in the same plane. And I think the
Yeah,
information.
you
we
grew
can
up with
toss.
Jesus, and Ben and I grew up with Michael Jordan.
But I think we can offer so much great information to people out there that don't know that these places exist. So that's a whole heck of another podcast. Is where do you source your materials? Where do you source your hinges and pulls and whatever?
And that's actually a really
and
good
we can
topic.
go on like that.
But the only thing is though, is that's very
for your finish.
Yeah, it's very area specific in some cases.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw this in, so I was looking it up while Ben was talking about the Baltic birch, but poplar on the Janka scale is 540, soft maple is 950, and then hard maple is somewhere like around 1400 or something like that. So soft maple is a really good option. Not quite as hard as hard maple, but you just don't get the same issues, at least from my experience. It's probably not as big on like 8/4 material, but 3/4 material, I've had some pretty bad experiences with it. But Ben, was there a second part of the question that you wanted to dive into?
Have you guys ever have y'all ever tried any national distributors of plywood or MDF or light MDF or anything like that? I just wanted to cover that before we start going in like hardwoods and stuff.
Of plywood?
Yeah, or have you? Okay, because I think the biggest thing is buying any lumber sight unseen.
I got you. From another state and having it shipped to you.
Yeah, because for me, again, for whatever reason, I couldn't. Said you mentioned it earlier about mentioning finished plywood. I had that same experience with all of my local dealers, because it seems like just maybe it's the county that I'm in or the tri-county area that I'm in. Everyone here, all the lumber mills here, they're all distributors to outside of the state. So they're not really used to anyone local coming and saying, hey, can I buy some lumber from you guys? There's a huge white oak lumber mill in my county. And I went, and they literally have miles and miles of stacked white oak that's 2 stories tall, like these massive piles of it. And I'm like, hey, can I buy some white oak from you guys? And they're like, what?
Yeah. They ship it. They ship it out of the country
globally. Yes, they ship.
Yeah,
it globally.
They ship it out. They ship it out of the country. It's going everywhere but here. Yeah.
Some little pissant like me come and say, hey, can I buy 3 divorce? like get bent,
Well, let me hit this. Let me hit this real quick, because Hearts of Hardwoods, that is exactly the scenario that you're talking about. They do not have a retail location yet. They plan on opening it up to local personnel. It's my military in me. Local people in the area to come in and buy boards and stuff like that on a small scale, which is fantastic. But no, they are like, and their primary means of, or their primary customers are all international by far. But they provide, walnut and white oak and cherry and some other stuff to other lumber suppliers that are across the United States. An example of that would be Peach State Lumber that I used to go to in Georgia, in Kennesaw, Georgia. Hearts of Hardwoods sells their walnut to them, and then they sell it. So I guess I've had that experience, but I've never gone to a place that doesn't primarily focus on like selling to the consumer. Because like I had other local lumber yards. Sewanee Lumber is another one in Buford, in Sewanee, Georgia, or Buford, Georgia. Probably Sewanee, since it's called Sewanee Lumber. And they did sell to a lot of larger companies, but they weren't like a huge facility, but they had it open for anybody to come in and buy. So I guess I've had experience with that. Plywood, I can't speak for that. I have had dealings with DSI Ply, which is a local place here in Indianapolis and probably in many places across the United States. And when I called them to ask them about like minor things, I kind of got the impression that they weren't really, there to provide 10 sheets of plywood to, Jason Bent and come up to will call and, buy it sight unseen, and they'd have it all ready for me when I got there. But what I've noticed about places like that is that, you can expect to get pretty good quality stuff because you're buying it sight unseen, and they have to go off the grades. So if I'm going and buying a bunch of A1 walnut plywood, you better believe that stuff is going to be nice. And if it's not, if I inspect it and say, hey, this isn't right, like this piece right here is all screwed up, I want you to replace it, they would probably replace it. Sedge, I think you do have experience with DSI, correct?
Yeah, I've had some. I used to buy my ML Campbell product from them because they're an ML Campbell. They're a regional, I don't know if the right word is wholesaler, but they're like, I think Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan,
So
yeah,
Northeast.
they're Midwest, and they're pretty big outfit. Good customer service, and you're right. It's like when you're ordering plywood and it's from a big company, yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a time issue because you can start going through the pile of the skid and you may say, hey, oh, wow, I have some delamination on one of this like A1 face. They'll gladly replace it for you. That's why I like good customer service, and they'll say, hey, I'll be there tomorrow. And it's all about trust with a company. Hey, like I had to select some walnut. I drove to Frank Miller because I needed really clear walnut 8/4 for a desk I was building, a stand-up desk. And I needed 12-foot lengths. And I said, hey, what if I get this in to Indy and I have a lot of light wood in this walnut? I need it all, solid dark all the way through. And I go, well, you got to come and select it. So I did. And I had no qualm about that.
Right.
So
yeah, Ben.
Hey, do you guys prefer oil or latex to paint your walnut? Which one do you like more?
Latex, personally.
I was like,
Yeah.
what is he saying?
I mean, walnut is hideously ugly.
I like to oil
Why would
it
you
in
want
my
to look at that?
and in my latex chaps. Does that make sense?
So I just wanted to point something out because you had mentioned like you can buy stuff sight unseen, but you had talked about you drove up there to get it. So what people need to understand is that not every facility is set up to have a place where you can come pick through things, because
Correct.
they are dealing at a much larger scale than we will ever be at. Like I'm calling and wanting 10 sheets of ply or 50 board feet of walnut, and they're selling 1.5 million board feet of walnut or 7,000 sheets of plywood to a company. So we are just, peasants basically.
Yeah, I did a story. This is probably last year, of like some of the local mills that are around here. And when I say that, I mentioned earlier that they have miles of it. I mean miles of 40-foot stacked 8/4 white oak. And there's probably, I think they said each stack was about $60,000 of white oak. And it is, and this is at the height of like the lumber, crisis or whatever. And it's just like, holy crap, that's a lot of wood. Like it's amazing to see it. Amazing.
Yeah.
So
you're going to talk about the hardwoods part now?
Yeah. I think that I'm probably the oddball out here especially when it comes to hardwoods. Like I'm kind of.
Do you have a problem getting hardwood?
Definitely not. I'm kind of
I'm so immature.
I'm kind of a hardwood scavenger.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Hey, that coffee table came out really good with all the one that you gave me.
Yeah, except for all the mistakes that I saw.
Oh, it's perfect.
I'm just kidding.
Actually, I still have a little bit of walnut left over. Anyways, I'll go first. When it comes to hardwoods, I think Jason and I probably share this. Like walnut it is my favorite hardwood to use because I just love the natural look of walnut. When I built Jen's door, I used poplar just because it's cheaper in my area. It's more readily accessible in my area. Everybody that I go to has it, and again it's usually pretty cheap. For me, and I know that Sedge has different experience. For me, poplar is so easy to work with. It's a really tight grain, paints really well, finishes really well. But for me, if I can make a project without painting it, that's the kind of project that I want to make. Like, I love the natural look of wood. If somebody asks me to paint something, I just kind of roll my eyes. Just because depending on the species of the wood or the material that you're using, I don't think that wood should be painted. I think that you should allow that natural grain to kind of come through. Right now in my shop, I have a lot of white and red oak. And that's mainly just so that I can make stuff for around my house, make small furniture pieces, make small shelves. But I like to go to the lumber mills, and I'll grab a section of it in a minute. But a lot of the milling shops that are in my town, they have white oak spacers that they use for their kiln dried lumber. And that's the lumber that I like to build things out of, because I can get it for free. I'll pull it up here in a second. But and some of that is also just because I want to save. I would much rather have money for tools than to buy materials at this point. I think that I don't think we're ever close to being done with getting, tools and stuff for our shop. But right now, that's my priority, is just getting tools. So this is one of the spacers, and I know for the podcast listeners, it doesn't really do anything for you, but
I like the way you're holding that wood.
That's a very long piece of wood.
Reminds me of a very handsome lumberjack.
Nice beard. But this is one of the spacers that the mill shops use. And
wow.
Like, I go to them like, hey man, can I grab these spacers? Because they're like, oh, that's just trash wood. I'm like, no, it's not. That's like a shelf, or that's like part of the tabletop. And so I try to repurpose wood more than I buy new wood, unless it's, again, depending on the project. Like Jen's door, that was all purpose lumber that I got specifically for that door. But for stuff around the house, for shop furniture, I mean, I just prefer to use recycled materials, just because I don't know, it's more healthy conscious, or environmentally conscious, I guess.
So you're a fan of pallets. Cool.
No. Oh, there's pallets behind me. I haven't done anything with them yet, though.
Yeah, look at that. You must love Paul Jackman's channel.
No, I mean, like I'm a single parent, and I don't know. I'd much rather spend money on tools than the materials. But,
did you ever build a bespoke pallet before?
Yeah, that's the
Have
greatest.
you ever?
What did he do?
That guys, he offended everybody in that video, and that's probably one of my favorite videos by Jason Hibbs by Bourbon Moth.
What was it that he did? He made a pallet out of what?
Jeff Mack sent him a beautiful river table. And
epoxy river table.
Epoxy, and he cut it up and made a piece.
It was all a plan. Have you not seen the video, Ben?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God!
If you want, oh my God,
go to his channel.
Of it.
He rags on everybody. It's awesome.
Go to his channel tonight and sort his videos from oldest to newest, because it was one of his earlier videos once he actually got back into YouTube. It's
do I need to do it with my clothes on or off?
You can have your clothes off. So I want to talk about the hardwood part real quick, which most people is probably not a surprise. But one thing I wanted to mention, going back to the plywood discussion about buying things. So Sedge had mentioned Columbia Forest Products. Well, Columbia Forest Products is the main retailer for plywood at Home Depot. That doesn't mean that when you go into Home Depot and you see all that trash plywood, that's bad quality, right? It's just that they're getting a lower quality plywood for sale in the stores. What I want to mention to everybody, and I knew a little bit of this, but Paul Gale, who is one of my patrons, I knew him down in Georgia. We were having our monthly Patreon call one night, and he was explaining to me that he actually contacted Columbia Forest Products, and they sent him like all these samples of all of these different plywoods they got. And just like tools, what most people don't understand, like you can buy Jet and Powermatic and everything through Home Depot. They just don't have it in the store. Well, the same thing applies with plywood. You can actually order like super top quality Columbia Forest ply and have it delivered to the store and go pick it up. And the prices are really, really competitive. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there. Don't think that just because you go to the store and they don't have it, that you can't get it. They are a distributor for that product. Therefore, they can get it. How fast they can get it, I don't know, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
Totally forgot about that. That's a really good point. Completely forgot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the same thing applies to another thing I wanted to mention about what you said, Ben. Everything is very location specific. To further caveat that Home Depot conversation, and this is not a plug for Home Depot in any way, but Home Depot, like in California and maybe a Home Depot in Idaho and all that stuff, you know, like for me, I can go to Home Depot right now and I can buy poplar and I can buy red oak. I can buy maybe alder. I've seen it, a couple of them, but that's about it. Now the prices are astronomically high and ridiculous, but in a pinch, if I need poplar and I don't want to drive 40 minutes to get it, I'm going to go to Home Depot and I'm going to buy it. With that being said, there are Home Depots out there that whatever the common wood is in an area, like let's say walnut is the super common lumber, they might have walnut or white oak or cherry or whatever in the Home Depot. Now, again, it's going to be ridiculously overpriced, but in a pinch, if you needed it, it was there. So I just wanted to bring that up. When it comes to hardwood, I'm a very simple person. I really like white oak and I really like walnut. I love walnut. I do have some cherry in the shop and I do have some ash in the shop, which ash I would actually classify very, very close in between white oak and red oak. But for me, if I have my choice, I'm using walnut or I'm using white oak. And I got to be honest with you. I got you, Ben. I am really, really becoming a much bigger fan of white oak. And I think it's just because that's the style that we like, especially the riffs on white oak. And all of the white oak that I have in my shop is all the riffs on stuff from Hardwoods. It's beautiful, super stable. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I love the straight lines. And the latest batch of walnut that I got from them is all their Veneer Grade, which is like top quality, like the highest quality. Said you saw the table I built, right?
Woo!
You delivered it with me.
Woo!
On that entire table,
Entire
table, there was
and
one knot, and it was on the bottom side of the table.
Yep, it was gorgeous. It was the clearest walnut I've ever seen.
The
Do you have any
veneer
plans for that?
I would if somebody that I knew would make them for me. But again, we've talked about this. Clearly, he doesn't like money. I mean, I just have money like, falling out of my drawers at home that I'm just trying to give away, and somebody won't make me.
You put money in your drawers?
Is that a custom built drawer?
Well, technically, my night job people put money into my drawers.
Ooh.
And then it falls out once I take my drawers off, and then everybody leaves. It's really weird. I don't know. But yeah, that Veneer Grade walnut, it's the best walnut I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, it's zero knots, zero defects. I've used a lot of like common number 1, common number 2, lots of knots. It's like the rustic grade is what people talk about. And there's a place for that. I love to build shop cabinets out of it. I love to do all that kind of stuff. But Ben, go ahead.
Can you talk about that, about common number 1, common number 2?
Yes. So common number 1. So the way that the grading scale works, I'm not a professional in this, but I learned a ton when I was at Hartzell. So I'll talk about Hartzell's system specifically because I'm most common with that. You have what's called common 2, common 1, and common 2. Common 2 is going to be the cheapest walnut that you're going to find. And the reason that is because it has a lot of defects. It has a lot of knots. It's all based on percentages of defects in the wood, right? So common number 2 is going to be a lot less expensive than common number 1. Well, from common number 1, you go into FAS, right? Which is, so you've got common 2, common 1, and I might be missing one here, but then you have like your FAS, which is like the good quality stuff, which is a certain percentage is defect free, but there's still knots in it. Well, Hartzell actually has an additional grade, which is FAS white oak. White oak FAS. I think that's what it's called. And basically what that means is the rules for white oak for FAS are more stringent than the rules are for walnut. So every single rating that you see on wood is based on the wood species itself. So a white oak for FAS or better is a better quality FAS walnut, if that makes sense. Right? Does that make sense?
I have no idea.
Ben? You have no idea. So Hartzell carries that, and a lot of other suppliers carry that. So and it's all tiered, based on price. Well, above the walnut grade FAS or the white oak grade FAS walnut, because it's just more stringent rules, which means there's going to be less defects. Then they have what's called veneer grade. And veneer grade is like 90+% clear. I mean, it's uncanny. I could pull boards off my shelf right now and there might be 1 or 2 imperfections on like 5 boards. It's nuts. But that is like the top quality, lumber period in my, at least that I've ever used. I mean, I've bought FAS and had to deal with a bunch of knots and imperfections and stuff like that. It looks really nice, but there's a bunch of imperfections. Mm-hmm. This one, that table was super easy. I just laid all my boards out and I was like, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. And that one has a knot. That's going to be on the bottom side. Boom, done. But some people like knots. And another thing is, when you're talking about common 1 and common 2, some companies will call it rustic. And essentially rustic is the same thing as like common 2. From my understanding.
It's another way
rustic.
of saying crappy.
Yeah, but when you're talking about rustic walnut or rustic white oak, it's not the same as building a table out of construction grade lumber and calling it rustic.
Yeah, but that's what that means though.
It's not what that means.
With pocket holes.
Yeah, but you know what? Hey, I don't hate on anybody that does that because that's how I started.
Oh man, I've got
and if Sedge asked me to build a table, that's exactly how I would do it.
I've got a really good post to show you guys later. Hang on, Sedge,
go ahead.
Get to that.
Oh, sorry.
I raised my hand a long time ago.
Yeah, I know, but
but you asked Jason a question.
You did. You asked me a question.
But that's not why I raised my hand.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay. This is just it's anecdotal evidence that most people consider red oak to be the trashier wood than white oak. Why is that?
Because it has an ugly red tint to it.
But what if you want the red tint?
Then you use red oak.
I don't know. That's just that's always been something that I was wondering. It's like why people just hate red oak. Like, and I mean vehemently hate red oak. They're like,
well,
red oak's trashy. I'm like, that's
a trend thing.
Don't talk about red oak like that.
No, I mean it is. Like, it's just like somebody saw it on a channel, but I mean it is. It's just it's white oak, but it's a much more pinkish or reddish tint, and it
salmon.
It doesn't look as good as white oak. It's salmon. It's aggressive salmon. It's not pink.
All right, go ahead, Sedge.
Cherry.
Yeah, Sedge is all about the cherry. Heyo.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Okay, Sedge.
Cherry's beautiful.
Do you mind that cherry, the color changes over time?
No, because it looks better after
that's
time.
the beauty.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, the beauty of it. Oh, I love. That's why I love cherry. It changes. It just, that patina of something you built 20 years ago, and it just gets that beautiful, deep, ruddy look, that beautiful red. To me, it's like, you guys have been downstairs.
He's getting emotional.
Like in my cabin. Oh no, guys, that's
easy there, Sedge. Don't stand up.
Oh no, Jason, stop it.
Jason,
stop it.
He likes soft maple, not hard.
Oh my God.
We're good.
Oh my God.
I feel like we need to be playing some sort of sexual music right now.
Oh, I could put that in the post edit.
Yeah, this will be a really good post. He's just really excited about cherry.
No, go on. No,
Jason, let's do a provocative stance, Jason.
There's a place in Lewiston, Maine. I used to ride my bicycle by when I was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 with me and my brother Mark. It's such a fond memory of mine.
You guys had bicycles back then?
It was yeah, stop. It's something cherry cabinet, kitchen cabinetry. And just you would peek into that shop and you would just like, wow, it smells so cool. And those cabinets look so beautiful. And it's just, I don't know. Have you guys ever, who Thomas Mosher? He was a professor at Bates College, and he builds some beautiful chairs. He's known for his Thomas Mosher, cabinet maker, and his furniture is world renowned. It's out of Auburn, Maine, and you were talking about lumber yards, and I asked the question when I went on a tour there. He's known for his bent Windsors, and he or bent Windsor arms, whatever. It's just a heck of a process. It's all natural oiled, and a lot of almost all cherry, a lot of maple, a lot of walnut. And I asked him at any one time, how much board feet do you have of cherry on your yard here? And he goes, his son said 70,000 board feet at any one time.
What?
You guys ought to go look. Yeah. What are you guys laughing at?
Nothing. We have been.
We try to hold it in. It's nothing that you said.
It's nothing that you said.
Well,
what?
It's something that Jason. Something that Jason thought you said.
I guess I wasn't looking in the camera. I guess I was just looking up because I'm trying to remember some really cool stuff that I grew up around in Maine. And it's I was really blessed. I was really blessed because that's my hometown, and this guy is wicked famous. He's written many books on Shaker design. He brought Shaker furniture back to modern times. And you guys never heard of Thomas Mosher, eh?
No.
Interesting.
What's the name of the book?
Thomas Mosher, cabinet maker, and he has written a couple of Shaker design books. Thomas Mosher, you got to go look him up online. He's good. Yep, cool. So I thought I'd mention that just because cherry's my favorite wood to work with.
So I have my computer desk in my room. I made out of cherry, and when I first milled it, it was a really, I don't want to say a bright pink, but it had a lot of pinkish tones. And now, that was 3 years ago, and now it's probably like an orange hue. It's got a little bit of pink left in it, but it's an orange now. What's that trajectory going to look like over the next couple of years?
Oh, it's going to get so red, so deep. It's going to be beautiful. I'm thinking now what you guys were thinking, because that went over my head. Yeah. You're gonna do some of these posts, and I'm gonna be licking my lips and stuff like that. You guys ain't right.
That was an awesome.
Well, I mean, Sedge, we're not the one that's saying this.
Whatever.
Yeah,
you were talking about oiled wood and all kinds of other things. Like, we don't need to know what you do on Friday nights.
Don't you guys get jazzed when you're in your shop? And you've gone through a lot of design, you've gone through a lot of milling, you've gone through, a lot of joinery, you've gone through a lot of ornamentation on that, and you go to finish it, and then that wood just pops when you put that finish on. Okay, sorry, you guys.
Everything you just said sounds like a lot of work. I like
it is a lot
of
work, but the beauty of that wood just like popping, and especially if you use a really good figured wood like cherry, it just pops. It's amazing feeling. Just oh my god, I'm like gonna have all these things
Wow.
on Instagram next
Ben,
week.
do we have our podcast
recent-
rated as X-rated?
Oh, it's explicit.
No,
every time.
it's something romantic
you know,
about
here
woodworking.
we
It's
go.
just so
Oh
much
my
daggone
gosh.
fun.
Ted, something you said earlier, when I finished that door for Jen, she was so excited that she saw some wood pop that night. I'll just say that.
Hey yo.
I'm not going there. Oh boy.
Ted, you're talking about wood pop and stuff.
Holy moly.
If you want some wood to
No,
pop, do a project for
I
your
didn't
lady.
mean that.
I'm just saying.
I didn't mean it like that. Just didn't mean it like that.
Then what did you mean, Sedge?
Yeah. What
No, I
did
know what you mean. No, it's
I'm like,
especially
wow.
Sedge, it wouldn't be a
taking that-
podcast if we weren't ragging on you. That's actually been the best
I
feedback that I've
know.
received so far. Everyone always writes me a message and they're like, really loving the podcast. It's so funny. You guys give Sedge such a hard time. And I'm like, I know, that's just the way we are. And he says funny things.
I like how
it's just I guess I've been passionate about woodworking for a long time and I still am.
Oh, we know
Yeah.
that. You with your happy socks.
Oh my
Rubbing oil on wood, we
god.
get it.
Oh my god.
Ben, is there any is there any other things that we need to hit on this? I mean, I think we covered what he asked pretty well, don't you?
Yeah, I think that one thing is certainly clear is that this podcast should never be in charge of any railway operations because we get derailed so much. That
Yeah, that's
oh,
fine.
yeah.
People love it. I listen to every single episode, and I'm telling you, like, I think it's good information. I mean, I take stuff out of every episode from
100%.
Sedge, not from you, because like, what do you know?
Exactly.
You have a shaper.
I got a glow forge.
Oh, I got a glow forge and a shaper. Look at me, I'm a maker.
Okay, that sounds
And
like
you drink
a get
and you
bent.
drink White Claw. Oh, is
a
that time?
get bent lead in.
I'm feeling saucy right now. I'll tell you that. I'm about 5 claws in.
Ooh,
Wow.
You wanna
So
talk
I
about
actually
the wood
figured out a
pop?
way to filter. I actually figured out a way to
What?
filter my comments to only unanswered ones, so it's easier for me to find them. Yes, go ahead, Ben.
Sedge, I have a serious bone to pick right now. I want to know, as talking to you as a festival employee, there has been something so atrocious that has happened that I want some answers now. I want to talk to corporate. That's how pissed off I am. I want to know because I just bought the whatever the little sustainer pack was, right? It came with these little drawer inserts for the Gen 3 sustainers. I want to know why the minis don't have their own drawer systems. Answer me now. Why don't I have little drawer systems for my minis?
Is this crickets?
I'm like looking at my microphone. It's like, it's still on.
Is Sedge freezing up?
I want some drawer systems for my minis.
Make them.
No, I want
You're the only one I've ever heard that from.
Well, you know
So
what?
we
We're
make
gonna-
we
That's
have to
because
go with
everybody else knows that those
production.
smaller ones are just kind of,
we're
for
about
fun.
to start. We're about to start a revolution. I'm just saying.
Why don't you design something?
Now I need a 3D printer. Sedge.
Oh, do you? You have a
See?
shaper,
You should-
Ben, and you talk about how the shaper
should.
does everything. Why don't you just do something on a shaper?
I never said that. I never
Oh,
said it
yes,
does
you have.
everything.
I watch your stories.
I never said it does everything.
So you got the
Oh,
Gen 3
should listen to
Sustainus
episode
Bata kit?
I did. That's what I bought before we went to your house
Cool.
on Saturday.
Cool.
That's what my laptop is sitting on right now. Is all of them, all 4 of them.
Nice.
Yeah. And they
Very
came with little
nice.
drawers. They came with a little drawer inserts, which I think was a very smart move. A less expensive move
Ah.
for the
Man,
Gen
I-
3s.
I think
Yeah.
I think guys, I think I only have one comment tonight, which is
Oh,
probably
I've-
good because we've been going for quite a while.
I've got one.
Oh, perfect. All right, let me
That's a
do
good
mine
one.
real quick. For everybody's favorite segment, I've actually had a lot of people say that they liked the world hates Jason or everyone hates Jason, whatever it was, better, but we're sticking with Get Bent.
Okay.
Change approved. I only have one, and this one is from my video on the drill NATO.
It's like 3 years ago.
Yeah. 2 days ago, somebody watched it. This was their comment. Oh, hold on. Get ready, everybody, for Get Bent.
Get bit.
Get bent. All right, here it is. Man, you talk too damn much. Plain and simple is best. That's it.
What's their name? I have one identical to that.
It starts with a number.
Oh, mine doesn't. Mine says the same thing then. This is on my 6 options to haul wood when all you own is a car. Hang on,
Good
let me get in the character. You
Mm.
talk way too much. Next time, don't waste time. Just get into talking and showing how to accomplish the task.
So
I like it. I like it how you turn your head to get into character, and then
hey, can I say something? I really
you guys
like.
entertained me.
So since we have changed the name to Get Bent, that could have a ton of meanings. It's not just the world hates Jason. So with that being said, Sedge, you have a YouTube channel too.
Yeah,
So I
buddy.
think from this point forward, we need to come into the episodes.
We each need to come up with one.
It's titled Get Bent, but we all, if we all have one, let's all share it. I mean, I usually have more than enough, but let's do it. And Sedge, I would love to hear you talk about it in the angry voice. That would just be
Fool. I stayed away from my mic on that one.
yeah. All right, so I'm sorry, everybody listening. Actually, this week was, now that we're going on a weekly basis, this week was actually really good because all the feedback that I got on the cabinet video has been really well. So I don't have
So
a lot
far.
of hateful comments so far. I'm actually thinking about changing the thumbnail because
Again?
yes. Did you get my click-through rate is dropping every
Why
day.
did you change it? And not that I care, like not that I'm like offended or anything, but why did you change it from what you and I had decided to?
I didn't. All I changed was the title on the thumbnail.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like why?
Because I got a few comments that were like, I don't know. I was looking at like cabinets for, the beginner's guide for dummies or whatever. I got a few comments and I was like, you know what? I wonder if I just put like beginner's guide to cabinets, if this would be more enticing. And I'll tell you what, like there was a definite change. Like I could show, I mean, you can look at it, Ben.
Yeah.
You can see where it was going like this. It started to dip down and I changed it and it started to go up. But now my CTR is actually dropping. But anyways, the whole reason for talking about this is today I posted a picture, which you saw, and it was me like laying on the table, like going like this.
A very seductive,
the comments that I've got
pose.
are great. And a bunch of people were like, you should have made this the thumbnail. I'm actually thinking about changing it now just to see if it does anything.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
Nobody makes thumbnails like that. And that was the whole point of the title or, the thumbnail words that I had recommended, was because nobody makes it, frameless cabinets for dummies. Like nobody has to like, wait.
It's also really hard because, I mean, anytime I've ever done a cabinet related video, it's been one of my better producing videos. Why? Because it's such a highly searched topic.
Yeah.
But the feedback that I got on this, on how I went about doing it and how I explain things, that's what's really good. So that just reassures to me I need to continue to do that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
Anyway, we're doing Instagram accounts, right?
We are.
Okay. I'd like to go last today if I could.
All right. Said you want to go?
Okay. Ready? This is going to be a twofer tonight for me because I can't talk
What?
about one and not talk about the other. Okay, I'm going to call out Ronnie Fulton
Ooh,
and his
nice.
and his son Cameron Fulton, or we call him Cam. I've known these two gentlemen for quite some time. I met Cam when, God, he wasn't even up to my waist. And now he's 12 or 13 now. So Ronnie,
He's amazing.
I just interviewed him recently. He's just such a cool dude, great contractor. And they're out of the Kentucky area. Their father, son. But first it's at Fulton Fine Woodworks. That's Ronnie's page. That's on Instagram. But also his son is Cam, and it's Cam's Corner Shop.
Yep.
And yeah, Cam's Corner Shop. And scroll through because you can see him growing up. And this young man, I should say, is 12, 13 now. And Ronnie and I were just talking about him on the podcast. And boy, he can hold his own in the shop. He turns. He's right there with his dad on the job sites, having fun. Can't wait to work on the weekends with him. And it's just a really good feel, father, son, just nice guys. So I want to call him out because I really respect him.
I would love to add to that. So last year at Workbench Con, Ronnie and Cam spent, like, I think we went to dinner most nights while we were there, spent a lot of time with each other. And I was so impressed with how sharp Cam is. And I was also very excited about the relationship that Ronnie has with his son, Cam. And I just wanted to bring this up because every time I think about what I want my relationship with Leo to be like, I immediately think about Ronnie and Cam. And it's just, I know exactly what you mean. Like it's super awesome, the relationship they have. But I mean, it's sitting here, like, what's so cool is that Ronnie takes him on all of the jobs and he's doing all of this work. And we're sitting like eating dinner and stuff at like Buffalo Wild Wings. And Ronnie is talking about these jobs and his expectations and his thoughts and his dealings with customers and all this stuff. Like he was somebody that's been doing this for years. And he was showing him, just like, this kid is just so sharp. Like this, it's incredible. And then just seeing the two of them together, I mean, they're just inseparable. And that is exactly what I hope Leo will be like with me in the shop. So very, very, very good recommendation.
That's really awesome. And I really like Ronnie's story too. Like how he got into woodworking, how he started, and, you know, circumstances with his family, and he just kind of leaned forward into it. And I think that's really awesome, especially how he got started. And
he does incredible work.
That's what I was going to say. A few weeks ago, he posted about, you know, because he installs these automatic screen door systems as like an enclosure in people's back. Freaking cat, man.
That was weird.
Did you guys hear that?
Oh yeah, we heard it.
Some random piece of wood just really pissed him off, and he just decided to knock it off. Typical cat. Anyways, but he installs these automatic screen doors that are between columns, like on a back porch or back patio. And it's so cool to watch. You know, he does really good work. But really great recommendation this week, Saj. Anything else you got to say about it?
I'm good. I'm going to call it out. Listen to the Festool shop talk I did with him.
Yeah,
and you'll understand. You will understand why he is such a great gentleman.
Yeah,
and
he's fantastic.
His outlook on life is unbelievable. It's one heck of a story. So just wanted to point that out. He's a friend of mine, and that's, I consider him a good friend.
I'm assuming he'll go to Workbench Con, so we'll definitely be hanging out with him.
Yeah, I'll have to meet him.
Yeah.
So, you know, this week, you know, anytime we do these Instagram accounts that we should follow, or YouTube, whatever, you know, it's really inspirational to see these people, what they do. And, you know, there's always something to learn from them. However, this account pisses me off every time I see it. And every time I see a post come up from this account, it makes me want to quit woodworking.
You better not go where I think you're going with this.
That is how much I hate this account. I hate this account because of how damn good it is. And the account is Waters in Auckland. They're based in the UK. It's a woodworking school.
What is it?
Waters.
It's unbelievable.
Waters with like an ampersand, like an and symbol. Auckland.
Got it.
ACLAND. Like they feature their students' work.
Good Lord.
It is, like I said, when you go and look at it, you're like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done being a woodworker.
Yeah, I quit.
Because there is no way that you would ever hope to rise to the level of craftsmanship that these students have. And it's so bonkers how well it is. I mean, this is like if woodworking was a collegiate degree, these guys were in the master's program. Like these are the PhDs of woodworking.
I 100% agree with you. I've never heard of them, but it is incredible.
I mean, like, you know, listening to this podcast, it really does not do it justice. You have to go follow this account and see what these students are making. It is insane what they're able to create. Like, I had no idea that you could do that to wood.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But like I said, like, you know, unless I you know, from what I understand or what I know about this teaching course or this academy, if you want to call it that, is, you know, all of these designs are coming from the students. Like they conceptualize the design, and then the instructors show them, they kind of guide them how to get there. And it's just,
ooh, I could go do a 1-week course there.
Yeah, for like $5,000.
But worth every penny.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if that's.
I get to hang out in the UK and go see all my UK followers.
You have to go across the pond to do it. But man, do they do some incredible work. And every time that they post something, I think to myself, I didn't know wood could do that. So definitely go give them a follow.
I've been following them for years, Ben. That's a really good call.
That's very good. I've never heard of them.
Well, absolutely.
God,
it's amazing. They're such a big account, and I've never
been following them for years and years.
I don't know if they have one, but I would really want to see them with a YouTube account. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Jason, what do you got this week?
All right. So the one I'm going to talk about tonight has nothing at all to do with woodworking. And if we have a couple of minutes, I'd kind of like to talk about why I'm talking about this one. So the person that I'm going to recommend is a tax strategist. And I know that might sound kind of strange, but the way that I'm envisioning this is that there is a very large population of our audience, whether it's on the podcast or on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, that's trying to figure out how to start a business and what all the rules mean and everything like that. And, you know, I've been doing this for coming up on 3 years now. And I think just as important, if you create a business, just as important as anything else is understanding how you can maximize your profits, your tax return at the end of the year, and understanding the business side of things. And so the person that I am actually going to recommend this week is somebody that I have found an absolute ton of value in. And he's on both Instagram and YouTube. And he just has really, really good information on the business side of things. And the account is at Carlton Dennis, and that's spelled KARLTON TONDENNIS at Carlton Dennis. And his Instagram is really just a lot of clips from his YouTube videos. But holy cow, if you want to know what the difference between, an LLC and an S Corp and a, LLP and, things that you can write off, what's a write-off versus a deduction. It's just, I have been inundated with information that I just did not know existed. So that is my recommendation this week. I think it'll be very helpful to a lot of people. Yes, Ben.
Are claws a write-off or a deduction?
Deduction.
Okay.
Business expense. You have to have White Claw to do your job.
It's a consumable, right?
I would say it's a deduction because you have to have it to do your job. A write-off would be if you needed it for a project. So it kind of works both ways. Yeah, thanks, White Claw. So anyways, like I said, I know that we typically want to focus on like the woodworking community, but I just, the value that I've gotten from him it's unbelievable. Like, it has answered so many questions that I have. And it also gave me so many questions to ask my CPA about, like, well, what about this? What about this? And he's very good. He's very personable. But with that being said, I wanted to quickly talk about something before we close this out. And I know Sedge knows exactly what I'm talking about. And I hope Ben does. But holy cow, Sedge. Sean Cannell.
Oh, yeah. Think Media.
Think Media. I started following him way back in the day when he was doing videos on, cameras and microphones and all this stuff. And he has completely shifted his business. They still do a lot of that. But you want to talk about somebody that, every time I listen to the podcast, if he's the one talking on the podcast, I swear to God, I feel like he's talking to me directly. Yeah. He is so in tune with YouTube and the process. He is just a wealth of knowledge. I actually started reading his first book. I think it was his first book, YouTube Secrets.
Yeah.
And I'm about halfway through it right now. Really valuable. I think he has another one. I'm actually thinking about becoming a member of his like little group that he has. And I'm going to be honest with you. He has an option for like a one-on-one phone call, like a strategy phone call. It's like $2,000 for an hour. I'm not kidding. I am like thinking, like I'm like figuring out ways that I can make that $2,000 and do that call, because his free content, if anybody out there is thinking about getting serious about YouTube, the only channel that you need to go find is Think Media, period. Their podcast, their YouTube channel, their website. I am not affiliated with them in any way. I just want to make that clear. No. They are a wealth of knowledge, and their free content is mind-blowing. So I can't even imagine how good their paid content is.
I've binged on 30 of their podcasts, and I'm not even halfway done. I think there's a third of them I'm done because they're in their 90s now, episode 90. And it's just, if you're into it, and if it's really helped me at work as well, just to give thought about social media and YouTube. It really makes you think about things. And if you're a presenter, demonstrator, whatever, it makes you really think about things. I enjoy it.
There was
because they have it dialed down to formulas.
There was one, and they've done tons of research, but there was episode 91, why subscribers aren't watching your videos. I felt like he was talking to me directly. I was just like, holy cow, like I can totally relate to that. There was another one though that I actually meant to tell you about, Ben, to listen to it because we've had this conversation. This is one, episode 80, why successful YouTube creators get stuck and stop growing. 5 reasons why you're stuck and not growing on YouTube. It's just amazing. Like, and it's funny because they're all just clips of him giving some of these paid courses and some of these paid presentations and stuff. but the insight on them is just unreal. Like, and
Mhm.
they the proof is in the pudding. I mean, they're very successful and they've started multiple channels. They've done all this stuff. Anyways, I just had to throw that in there. I know that that's more of a YouTube channel, but Sean Cannell is his name. Think Media is the YouTube channel. If you're interested in doing the social media thing, 100%, please go check that out. Like, it is, the free content is just unbelievable. Again, that's why I'm saying I'm willing to spend the $2,000 and have a one-on-one phone call with him and be like, look, man, this is what I want to do. This is what's been happening. What can I do to change?
No, I think that's a really great recommendation. Even if, I think that probably a majority of our audience isn't really looking for anything like that, but the very few that are, I mean, and just like you, Jason, I've been watching Sean for a long time. There was a channel he had with his partner Benji years ago, again, talking about cameras and like recording and stuff like that. So I've known about Sean for a really long time. And I agree with you in that probably in the last year and a half, 2 years, he's really doubled down on content creation and YouTube channel growth and stuff like that. And especially with their podcast that they started within the last year or two. There is so much value, especially in their free content, that, when you're talking about a $2,000 phone call, like, I agree, because they do a deep dive in their YouTube channel, kind of, look at some of the things that you're doing. Yeah, I mean, he and his team, they put out a lot of great content for creators. So if you're a content creator or if you're looking to get into the content creation game, definitely go check out their free content. I know that I've gotten a lot of value out of their recent podcast episodes. So yeah, I think it's a great recommendation.
It's fantastic. It's
Cool.
fantastic. I cannot say enough good things about it. Awesome. Well, this was a long one.
No, 2 hours. It's starting to become
2
a
hours and
regular.
6 minutes. Yeah, but I feel like this is officially the longest episode. I don't think we've had one go over 2 hours.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, crap. Guys, I haven't mentioned the normal thing.
Oh,
Mike Coffee.
nice.
I love you, Mike Coffee. You're my best friend.
Do we still want to get him on?
Absolutely, we do. I'm
I
calling
think
tonight.
you're next in
tomorrow.
the shoot, right? Or is it? Yeah.
No, Sedge. Well,
that's
next week should be audience questions, then Sedge,
Yeah.
then you.
That's right.
Yeah, I think next one's audience. Cool.
Do you want me to reach out to him and see if he wants to come on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I need to look to
I still wanna
revise the
pick a
schedule
topic,
now that we're
but-
doing weekly, but
Okay. So in 3 weeks, next Tuesday, then Sedge. Yeah, 3 weeks. I'll talk to him.
Cool.
I'm sure he'll say yes. I mean, does he
I mean,
know who we
we're
are?
great. So, you know.
And not to mention, it's not like we haven't given his podcast tons of promotion,
Lots.
and they haven't mentioned us once.
They've loosely talked about us.
Nope.
Loosely,
No,
but
they have
not
not.
specifically.
No, they have not. I listen to every one of their podcasts. They've never once mentioned the Green Suitors podcast. And you know what? When he gets on the podcast, oh, Mike, I hope you listen to this, which you won't. I am going to grill you and find out why.
Nice.
Mike, he had said recently, or not recently, this is probably 4 or 5 episodes back. He was like, oh yeah, on Bent's podcast. He didn't even say Green Suitors. He said Bent's podcast. Like you're
I
the
don't
one
remember
owns it.
that. My ears would have perked up a little bit. I listened to all of their podcasts. Man, you know, it's funny. I actually have him saved as a favorite in my phone because we talk so often. And he can't even mention our podcast on his show.
No, they've
Wow.
definitely never uttered the words Green Suitors. Never.
Oh, hold on. I'll prove it to you. Let's go to look at this. So I've got, well, you probably can't, why is this not? Oh, it's because my camera's up there. Anyways, I've got my wife. I've got Ben Marshall. I've got Sedge. I've got Ben Brunt, who is, he was the guy that redid my website. Great guy. I've got Mike. And then I've got our group, Sedge and Ben. He's in my top 6.
You know what? I think I know why.
Because he's worried that everybody's going to leave their crappy podcast and go to ours. I get it.
Yeah, because we're like the direct competitor for them. And
Exactly.
I mean, our stats show that we're pretty much dominating. So
Actually, that's not true. Like everybody's like Shop Sounds, their podcast they're doing really well. Shop Sounds. Yeah. Oh, which speaking of that, KJ Sawdust, right?
Yep.
You are like the new KJ Sawdust because you have a shop cat hanging around your shop constantly.
Gumbo the shop cat.
He listens to our podcast. He likes
That's
it.
good, man. I'm glad that he does.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks,
We
buddy.
appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
We love you.
All right. Well, look, I
Can't wait
think
to
we need to
what
wrap
Ben's
this up.
doing.
Because,
Yeah, we do because this is getting late.
before we close it, Eric, thank you so much for asking us to talk about such a really great topic. In true fashion, we like to derail things quite a bit, but hopefully we answered
And
all
go
your.
way too in depth. Way
Yeah.
too much in depth.
I hope that we answered all of your material-esque questions. Jason, if anybody that is listening to this past the 2-hour mark wants to find you and what you do, where can they find you?
I mean, let's be real, Ben. They know. Google me, everybody. No, at Ben's Woodworking on Instagram and benswoodworking.com or Ben's Woodworking on YouTube, or just go to benswoodworking.com and buy some plans and read the great articles that Ben writes or that used to write, doesn't write anymore, or the plans that he doesn't make. Yeah, do all those things. You'll find all my social media platforms there. Thank you. Ben, what about you?
You can find me at Instagram and YouTube at Ben Marshall Designs. You can also find my website at Marshall Design Works, which by the time this podcast comes out, because it's due tomorrow, I have to have it complete and ready to go for school. That's the whole reason why I have the website, is for a school project. You can find a few designs on there, a few blog posts that I'll have on there in the coming weeks. Sedge.
I think you have some plans on there too that you made for yourself, didn't you?
That's right. I did.
And that you didn't get paid for.
Sedge, go ahead and take the next 15 minutes and tell everybody where we can find you.
Yeah, Elton John, where can we find you?
Sedgetool.com, Sedge Tool on YouTube, Sedge Tool on Instagram, Sedge Tool on TikTok, Sedge Tool on Twitter. Also at Festool Sedge on Instagram, and Festool Shop Talk on YouTube, and also Festool Live every Friday at noon. We're going to be doing episode 74 coming up. So that's where you can find me.
Sedge, since this is releasing the same day that you're doing the live, what are you guys doing it on?
What are we doing? What?
What are you doing the Festival Live on next week? Because this comes out the same day that you're doing it.
To be determined at this moment.
I'm just going
I
to
have
tell
to
everybody
listen.
right now. It's about the new drawer system for the mini T-Lock. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us blabber on. And we look forward to catching everybody in the next episode.
Thank you.
Yes, we do. Thank you so
everybody
much.
for hanging
Oh,
in
leave
there.
a review. Go leave a review, please.
Leave a review.
Yeah,
Love
leave a review and a rating wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yep. Thank you. It's not hard. It's free. Thank you.
Yeah, freeloaders.
Freeloaders.
Hey, this has been co-host and editor of the Green Suiters podcast. This episode is over, but if you want to hear more topics like this and you want to be a part of our conversation, head over to patreon.com/Green Suiters podcast for early access to each show. If you're listening to this on free feeds, be sure to leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.